The Seat Alhambra Facelift, today on Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars. With me, with Thomas, and we're going to talk about the exterior, the changes of this facelift, the interior of course, here especially the flexibility, what can you change with the seats and with the trunk, and of course the driving experience. And we're also going to compare this car to the Volkswagen Charan, because we have tested the Charan before the facelift version, so this video will also be linked in the video description. And we've also recently had a big van comparison video. This one will also be linked in the video description. And you said, hey Thomas, one car was missing there, and that one is the Alhambra Facelift, so we're going to take a look at that one right now. Among the changes here in the facelift, we now got two horizontal fins here in the front grille, and the Seat logo has changed. You maybe remember before that there was another additional stripe in the middle. Now the logo looks cleaner, and that accounts for all the new Seat models or the facelifts. They will have this new logo here now. It's quite rare that manufacturers change their logos, and well, it basically remained the same. As I said, it looks a little bit cleaner now. Maybe we can discuss this in the comments, what you think about this kind of measure. Also, we got new headlights as we're used from facelifts, and well, I think they look quite good, and they also remind us of the ones of the new Charan. You know, the Volkswagen Charan, basically they are both the same cars. There are slight difference which we're going to explain to you today. The basic price difference, by the way, is 2,000 euros. This one here, the Seat Alhambra, is a little bit cheaper than the Charan. You know, we are always taking the German list prices here as a reference level. First of all, very interesting for our German viewers, and also for others, because we know really about the German price, so we can compare the cars better. This one here, 30,000 euros in Germany starting, and this one here, as it stands right now, with all the equipment, style plus trim level, about 50,000 euros. That's not really cheap. As I said, the Charan is a little bit more expensive even. But there's also new competition from inside, because from the Volkswagen Corporation, you know, there's also the new Touran, which we have also recently reviewed. A little bit smaller car, but a better price-performance ratio. However, this class here, the full-size van class, has even more trunk space in the rear here. So if you have a big family and want to go on holiday, we even have more space here in the rear. But we're going to take a look at that in detail when we explain the interior. Here now from the exterior, you see the side profile. It is still this form follows function. We don't have a lot of round edges. So we already see from the outside that the space on the inside is used very well. The length of the car, 4,85 meters. The facelift also offers new styles in the alloys. This one here, 17-inch. They look quite beautiful, also fit to the car very well. They're also not too huge, so you don't damage the tires. However, they are quite hard to clean, I can tell you. And finally, the rear, you see the classic squarey setup here. Not the most beautiful maybe, but it is really practical on the inside, and we don't lose any space. Now with the facelift, if you pick the best headlights setup, you also got LED taillights, and this redesign is also quite beautiful. And we got the big Alhambra name here. You know, maybe the name Alhambra comes from this famous castle in the south of Spain, where actually hundreds of years ago already modern technology as for water supply, for example, was used. Very impressive place. I can only recommend to go there. And so it's also an honor for this car to have this name. Let's take a look beneath the hood. Yes, we got hydraulic dampers in here, even if it's not that important. Quite nice. This one is a 2-liter diesel, 184 horsepower, the top engine version. Usually I can recommend it because you need power for this quite heavy vehicle. Also want to have a lot of people in the back there and a lot of luggage, so you need power then. However, if you don't need so much power, The most famous engine here in Germany is this here, the 2-liter TDI with 150 horsepower, a little bit less, and there's also one with 115 horsepower, but that one I think is not really strong enough from the torque. However, if you're more the petrol guy, then there's also a 1.4 liter available and the 2-liter petrol engine, 150 and 220 horsepower. Well, about the consumption, this one here is already about 8 liters on 100 kilometers. If you drive in the city, even a little bit more, that could be a little bit less. So we might expect that the petrol engines will even consume more. So you have to think about, for such a heavy car, if in this case maybe the diesel is the better choice. Inside, starting with the cockpit, as we used from the Volkswagen Corporation, very solid of all the door handles and also the sound of the door. Everything feels and sounds quite good. Also, again, the interior, even more refined now in the interior. I think this one here, this beauty cover, in the Charan we had it in wood. Of course, there are always different styles available. This one is rather the more modern look. Certainly fits the brand of Seat better because it more goes towards this younger and sporty style. And you see, there isn't so much arousing attention in the interior. Everything is kind of clear and elegant, but actually I liked it. If you take a look at the seats here, we got the fabric seats and I would really recommend them. However, they already got some beauty features here, for example, the contour stitches. And you see, you got the upright seating position. The seat is very low right now, but you can really put it very much higher here in this electric version in the Style Plus package. So no matter how tall or small you are, you find your perfect seating position. What is very interesting here with the headrests is that you got multiple adjusting. You can put it up and down as usual, but then also to the front. And that is really good if you want to really lay back with your head. That's a really clever system, and it's just manual, and that works pretty fine. We also have the massage function right here. Is it really worth to take it? No, not really, because it is not really a refined massage. It stays at the lower lumbar area, and well, I could very well do without it. It doesn't change too much actually. So if you think about which option shall I go for and which not, this one is surely one you can easily leave out. Instruments, very classic, very simple, but useful. The steering wheel, kind of easier built than with the Charan, I think, but it's, yeah, well, usually makes a solid impression. However, I would really prefer the Volkswagen steering wheel in this case. One highlight of the facelift is the new multimedia system. It's not the very huge GPS, it is maximum possible, for example, we've seen in Skoda or Volkswagen models, but it is kind of the second highest trim level in this case and for the GPS. And you see we already got this proximity sensor where we then put in the touchscreen commands, for example, for the next destination. And well, the size is actually enough, and the reaction times are also quite good. In general, I do like the Volkswagen Corporation GPS because you can also very well control them via touch or also with the controls right next to it, and you see the reaction times are really okay. And also when you just test them, do they lead to the right destination, they usually work pretty well. Here you got all the hotkeys, for example, if you want to hear your Bluetooth music, that also works very good. Connecting an iPhone or so is absolutely no problem. And also radio here, don't have the DAB here now, but you know, usually they do just work quite fine. And we also have a traffic information, what's on here on the German motorways. So overall, quite good with the information system here. Then if we move lower to the climate unit, this one is also has a good overview here. We got the special one, not only 2 zones, soon you will see it's even the 3-zone air conditioning. And let me tell you how that works. First of all, you can just control the air vents and the temperature here, just for the front passenger, both individually, because you know, maybe the one sitting next to you wants it a little bit hotter. Then also heated seats here, and these ones are of course optional, 3 level. And then if I press rear here, you see the temperature is changing here, because this one here is the temperature I set for the rear now, and also the vent speed. And you can see this effect then in the rear. You see it right here, then also in the rear, the vents change and also the temperature. Of course, you can also do it here directly, and you see this is really a family control center, for example. Just right from here in the front, I can also open the side doors, the sliding doors, because here we have optional equipment that is also possible electronically. So I can just put it here, or also open the trunk. This is all possible also from here. You just have to hold the key a little bit longer, and then it opens. And you can also close it from here. Perfect way to play taxi driver and get all the small football team in and out. About the storage spaces, we see it here at the inside of the doors. Also fits for bigger water bottles. You see there's a kind of round hole in there. Then we continue to the glove box. It slides down quite smooth. Can also be cooled here. That is also quite important. Maybe for your dark chocolate bar. Then there's a big space up here in the dashboard for all your belongings, that you keep the cockpit clean. Very well integrated as well. Then below here, we got just a small space. Well, not quite sure what I should put there. Maybe some coins. Then middle bottle holders. There are actually 2 of them. This one here is the ashtray, which I do not recommend because you shouldn't smoke in the car. 2 bottle holders, actually not quite high. 12-volt power supply. You see here, this is here the automatic electric handbrake. You know, I'm not the biggest fan of these. And then in the middle part here, you see quite steep. Also not too many space. Another 12-volt power supply, and the USB slot is right in here. And the last one up here for your glasses, and that leads us directly to the panoramic roof. You see it's really huge, and especially for the rear passengers, this brings so much light and so much more fun here to the travel ride. And I can also open it, and it actually goes quite far. You can make kind of half of a convertible van here. You see that is all the way here, really huge, and you see it's even lighter in here, and that's one very big feature. If you ask me which feature would you go for, this one would definitely one of them. And I can also show you when I'm sitting in the rear, there will be still enough headspace even if you have the panoramic roof. Double sliding doors. Optionally, they work electrically. So from standard equipment, you have 2 sliding doors, but just not, you know, usually manually. Do you need this feature? Maybe not, because, for example, when it rains, it's actually quite faster when you just have the manual doors, slide them open, and that's it. Get inside and slide them closed. So here with the electric stuff, it's more comfortable on the one hand, but it takes some more time. And now it's really getting exciting because we show you the flexibility of this car. First of all, just the normal check here in the rear, how you can really sit here, and you see you have really a lot of space. Let me put the head restraint up. You see a lot of knee space here, even for if tall drivers are here. And still with the panoramic roof, I got this kind of headspace. However, if you don't pick the panoramic roof, you would even have more headspace, but that's really fine. This is, by the way, a table here. Well, it's not, let's say, the best equipment of this car, but it does the job also for the beverages in here. And it's actually also kind of stable as soon as it is flipped up then. Then all these seats are actually quite flexible. For example, I can move them to the front and the rear. And for example, if you have smaller children, you can move them to the front. They won't need all the knee space. And then the luggage area is bigger. That is, for example, one very good thing. Then another very practical thing here, for example, the middle seat is even the same way and is flexible, so you can really move that one in the front and the back. And then on the outside seats, you can also move this one here up, and this one is especially important if you want, well, not the smallest children, which have a separated child seat, but those who are a little bit bigger, then this one here is enough. And we can soon show you there are also special head restraints then for this kind of setup. Will be soon, because we first show you how they are actually stored. And then finally, you can also flip the seats completely with this lever. And you see also the seating area moves down, and so you will have an even loading space to the rear compartment. This is also a very good solution then. And the last thing you can do with this seat is the lever up here. And then you can move the seat that way in the front, and that is, we'll soon also show you the entry for the 6th and 7th seat. You will see how this one plays out when we have moved this one up, but so far let's check the way the luggage compartment is right now. So let's check the rear compartment and vote in the comments if this one is a boot or a trunk for you. No? No, it is. You have also got the electric opening. Not really necessary, you know, when it rains it takes a lot of time. Actually the cover is quite of loose. I prefer it more when it's really, you know, kept tight on both sides, so it wobbles a little bit around. And then we see equipment we already know from the Volkswagen Charan. You see there's really a lot of space, and even more than in the Volkswagen Touran. This is really the difference, that you got kind of this more of trunk here in the length. And these special stuff here, you can flip them and then adjust the length on both sides. It's actually a quite nice solution, and you can fix it whatever you want to put in there. And there you see it looks kind of racing style, but soon I'll show you what they are really for. It's the kind of internal child seat here, let me call it that way, and we can use it as a special equipment then if we put the internal child seat up. But of course we can also remove all the stuff here, and we will do that because we also want to show you the 6th and the 7th seats. But so far let's first check the special child seat. Alright, so let's remove the standard restraint. You see it goes up quite high. Let's put this one in here. By the way, I haven't tested it before because a lot of things I wanted to show just live, because I don't want to practice them. You know, they should work quite easy. That's also a good sign then. So that is here the new racing setup. So if you want to go racing with your kids, then you put up the seat here, and now you have kind of a built-in child seat. If your children are maybe a little bit bigger, don't need to separate child seat anymore. I think a very clever solution they offer here. And now let's clean up this mess. We first remove this one here, and then these ones here. You can actually just leave them, but if you want to remove them, it's also not that hard. From the lower part, and then you got them here, and upper part first, and then click them in again. But we can actually leave them, that's okay. Here it's the same system. Now we get rid of this net, and then you see the rear compartment in its full glory. I can also remove this cover right here. I know you guys like when I do live workout with those big cars. There it is. This is really the maximum space you have got, but you can do even more when flipping the seats. And you see there's also this even loading space, and quite impressive then what you can do actually there. Or maybe I should have gone to the other side. So that's it. Also works quite easily. That is really long here. Very nice. I think you see these ones are the covers then for the seats. And now it gets really exciting, because the other setup would be then with the additional seats here. And see, you can also flip up the covers from here. And now we see how easy it actually works, that you can flip up the 6th and the 7th seat. For example, I've told you earlier, when you want to transport the football team, the special football team. When pull, here it says pull. So you can actually do it from here. That is for the back, and then the seating area. It's actually very interesting. You can also do it from here, but as you have to pull there, I think it's the better solution than really to reach it from the trunk. So pull it here. There it is. And then you see what space is left behind here. Also some other nets you can use. Well, you can actually put a suitcase up here. That is still possible. And then we go around for the other seat. So the sixth seat. And you see there's actually also, it's also quite easily done. So good system. There we already have it. And then I can really decide how many seats do I really need. Well, usually if I put these ones here up, the other ones are also put up. So I move them back again. And I can also show you how we can access and how we can also use the seat belt here, because this is also a quite nice solution they found there. And there you can see all the flexibility of the car. So now we put this one here up, then we're finally done. And then maybe we come around and I can show you how to get in there. So first of all, a good advice from me. If you want to have people sitting in the back, then you should move at least one or two of the seats a little bit more in the front, because then some knee space is left. And then you move up this one and have a quite easy entry in there. You see it here. Get in. And then it's also possible, first of all, you see this is okay now because I've moved the seat in the front. I can show you. So that's even fitting for some adults when the people in front of you are not that tall. However, if you have the maximum knee space in the front, then of course it doesn't work then. So you really have to adjust it. Headspace wise, you see, well, that even still works for me, and I'm quite surprised about that actually. And that's also different to maybe some SUVs, because they are not mainly set up for that one. Head restraint also goes up quite high, so that's still okay. And then it's quite interesting, what about the seat belts? They're hidden in here, and first of all it looks quite strange, but if you separate them, you can actually make a real seat belt from it, that way. Click 1, and then you move on to the click 2 at the lower part. Here it is, click 2. And that's kind of a full seat belt here, so I also thought about the safety aspect. And there you can see it is even possible to travel here with 7 adults. Really one of the very rare cars where this is possible. Let's start with our test ride. As I said earlier, 2-liter diesel, 184 horsepower, automatic handbrake, releasing itself. That is, well, one positive aspect, but again, just in case of emergency, I usually prefer to have the manual handbrake. Yeah, well, for example, one advantage, maybe if you compare the even bigger car, Volkswagen T6, the Transporter, this car is better to handle, of course, because you still have this kind of normal car feeling. Yes, you are in a big van, but you don't feel like driving a bus, and that's really good. For example, through the big side windows in the rear, you also see very well. For example, now when I'm turning, that's also one positive aspect. Then you have a really high seating position. You can adjust it here electronically. That's also good when you want to do it while driving, one example. And the DSG, the dual clutch transmission, is always good for smoothness shifting, and that also contributes to this very relaxing ride here we have here. The sound insulation is also very good, I can tell you. We have tested the car before driving 150, 160 on the motorway, and even with some rain, and then you know it always gets quite loud in the car, but here it was actually no problem. It remained relatively silent, and this is also very important for a very good travel car, so that all of the passengers remain feeling very comfortable during the whole ride. And that is, I think, the basic scheme of the car. You got this panoramic windshield here in the front. You can see actually really a lot. All the windows are very steep. You don't lose any interior space here, and so everything also feels that spacious while driving. And the same, of course, accounts for the rear passengers, and I think that's also the main thing of this car. The diesel engine here with the top trim level, the 184 horsepower one, well, as a sporty car driver you shouldn't expect too much, but of course it's the most powerful engine you can get it here for the car torque wise. So if you want to drive on holiday with the car very fully loaded, the strongest version can be recommended. Of course you can't go racing, but at least with this big diesel you have enough torque also to do some overtaking on the motorway. It's of course not the most agile car, but for a big van, if we do some right left here now, actually the steering is quite direct. We've experienced other cars which are just like normal or smaller cars that don't have such a direct steering. So it can also still be fun to drive this car, and you can not say that about most of the vans. Everything else, suspension wise, is good quality, as we know from Seat or the whole Volkswagen Corporation. Everything feels very solid in the build quality, and that is also very promising here in the driving experience. So let's see, now we have to go a little bit slower. Then I can also push down the throttle once that we can test the performance of the 2-liter diesel. I can also tell you something about it. For example, now let's say from 40 to 70. Okay, let's push it right down now. There we go. 70 now. So you see, 40 to 70, that was actually quite fast. So good performance of this diesel. Yeah, you hear the classic diesel sound a little bit, but just when you push down the throttle, if you just let the car roll and have usual accelerations, then you rather don't hear anything, you just hear the tires rolling. So in the normal power areas where you usually steer the car here, that's also just fine. It counts with this good noise insulation here, that you have this very, very smooth ride. And of course, we said early in the exterior review, form follows function here with the, I almost want to say Volkswagen Charan because it really feels the same while driving it, but Seat Alhambra here in this case. We always have a very good overview to the back, also to the sides, and that's also one big aspect here. For example, if you take the Renault Espace, you have a more, let's say, exclusive ride in this case, also from the French design, but you don't have such a good overview. And well, especially when driving, the better overview is, I think, the more important factor. Yeah, and again, if you ask me, Volkswagen Charan or this one here, I just mentioned it, just from driving, you don't feel any difference. Maybe just a little bit from the styling, but that's also kind of the same. It also depends on which trim level you pick, so there isn't really much difference. Very solid here, and also from driving, I think one of the hot tips here in this full-size van segment. Let me conclude about the Seat Alhambra Facelift. Overall, it's a very refined car with a lot of space for your family, and is a little bit cheaper deal than with the Volkswagen Charan. Both cars are rather the same. It is more a question of which brand you're really fancying, Volkswagen or the Seat. Both cars are really very good family cars, and if you ask me which full-size van I would pick in this segment, I would probably go for this one or the Charan, because they offer you a lot of space on the inside and don't play around with design that much. Everything is very elegant from the inside and from the outside. Those cars really serve their purpose, and also the whole processing of the car is very good. The consumption was a little bit too high, I think, and well, the price, okay, well, there are actually more expensive vans, but if you take, for example, other models also from the Volkswagen Corporation inside, you really have to think about, because some quite of smaller vans, they already offer a very good package on the inside, for example the Volkswagen Touran, and then you have to think about, do you really need kind of this space more than in the rear? Does it really make such a difference? Because otherwise you can save a lot of money. If you, however, want the full-size van class, this one is surely one of the hot tips in there. So thank you very much for watching Autogefühl. Looking forward to your comments here below, and I hope we also see us at the next Autogefühl episode here with Thomas.